Happy Camper Radio starts in 3, 2, 1. Time to get back to the business of camping. Hello, everyone. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper, and you're listening to the Happy Camper Radio Show, the only place you need to be when you're ready to talk camping. Camping is what we're about. Camping is all we talk about. How does this sound to you, folks? Are you hearing anything different? Is the sound quality a whole lot better than you've ever heard it before? I am sitting here in the studios of Happy Camper Radio for the very first time on our brand new Audio Arts Engineering Air 5 broadcast console. It is wonderful, folks. I am just blown away by the technology. What we have done here in the studios over the past month, we have tore out all the analog line. We've added Cat 6 digital cable, and I want to say there's miles of it. You wouldn't imagine this for a show just like Happy Camper Radio, but we have actually taken it to the next level. And I am very thrilled. I'm very excited. And as I mentioned about a month and a half ago when I was first talking about putting the console into operation here, and I hadn't even acquired it at that particular time, but I knew there were going to be some bugs that needed to be run out of the system. Well, there were many. And in the end, it turned out that I needed a brand new sound card for the computer to actually make this thing compatible. But I just finished all the fine-tuning just the other day, did a dry run, and everything seems to be working fine. Let me know how it sounds on your end. I'm very excited. I'm interested to know. All right, get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com, and give me your feedback. I'm always happy to hear from our listeners. It's time now for me to go over to our shout-out window. You know, I haven't been there in a while. And we've got some folks who signed up with us on social media, and I'd be wrong if I did not take the time to recognize them today. First of all, let's say hello to Martin Hubble, Ainsley Barrett of Littleton, Colorado, Philip Hare of Maryville, Tennessee, and Kevin Hayen of Ashland, Missouri. They like us on Facebook. Also to Matt Ruiz of Central Florida, Damian Duff of Tunbridge Wells in the UK, Christina Saunders of Durham, North Carolina, John Noss of New Jersey, the fine folks over at All Things Camping Blog in Ashford, England. We also want to say hello to the fine folks over at Amazing RVs in Houston, Texas, to Wendy Ann Derbyshire at Fort Saskatchewan in Alberta, Canada. They're all following us on Twitter. And finally, to Michael Frazier and Autumn McCrae. They've added us to circles on Google+. Thank you all so very much for joining us. We're so glad to have you. And thank you for being a part of this great Happy Camper Radio family. I also want to take a moment here to say hi to Julie Preston of Colorado Springs, Colorado. She is a camp counselor, and she's working at a summer day camp with some third graders. She reached out to the program. Julie, thank you so very much for tuning in as well. On the program today, I want to talk to you about selecting the finest possible campground you can choose close to where you live, and in some cases, maybe a little bit of a drive away. It's not very difficult to do this, folks. Now, some people like myself will decide to go camping spur of the moment. If you're sitting at home, you've got nothing to do, you've got nothing planned for this weekend, the grass is already mowed, all the chores are done, you're not going to have anybody hounding you, and you've got nothing to look forward to, you just may as well throw your gear in the back of the pickup truck or your hatchback or your minivan or whatever it may be and head off to a local campground. Some people have campgrounds close to where they live, like myself, for example. Some people travel a little bit of a distance to get to where they need to go. In some cases, people will use the same campground over and over. Nothing wrong with that. If you've got a great campground, you've got a great camping experience, you've got some wonderful campground hosts that you know are going to take care of you. You know you're going to get to the campground and you're going to meet lots of people each and every time you go camping. All right, you can do just that. But every now and then it's good to venture out and check out some other places. Careful planning is the key to a successful camping trip. Now, some plan, like I say, for a quick getaway, others don't. There are some folks who only go camping a couple times a year. And when they go camping, they may be gone for a week or two at a time. And chances are when people go camping for a long extended period of time, they're not going to be camping close to home. They're going to be driving long distances to get to where they need to go. Here's the problem I have at my age. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with driving through 2 or 3 days to get to your camping destination. Nothing wrong with that at all. All right, but I have been camping for many, many years, and I have been out and about. I have been to many wonderful campgrounds, some which I only wish I could return to, and, there's just not enough time in this life for that to happen. But, if you're going to be traveling long distances, the way I look at it, for every mile that you travel, for every few minutes you spend in that mile of traveling, that's a few minutes of time that you're not spending at camp. So for me, short distance camping trips are the way to go, at least for me. It may be different for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. Whatever works for you is great. But there's going to be some campgrounds you may be surprised are in your area that you are not familiar with. And it never hurts to venture out and take a look and see what's available. The great thing about online research is something we never had back in my day as growing up as a kid. We never had the internet. We never had cell phones. We didn't even have pagers. Pay telephones were in abundance. You hardly see them anymore. Where has time gone? But, it's working out for the better, because today you have everything right at your fingertips. And I'm not only talking about in your home, on your home computer. If you've got a laptop, if you've got an iPad, if you've got an iPhone, you can do your research from just about anywhere you have a Wi-Fi signal. So you've got a lot of good resources available to you. But take a look around and see what's available in your area, and check out a campground you may find that you didn't even know existed. Let's take a look at some of the places where you could possibly find some of these campgrounds. Don't overlook great websites like camping.com. You can go there and look at camping destinations in all 50 states. Now, some of these websites may or may not have a complete listing of every campground available, but you may find some in your area that you didn't know existed, and you'll find color pictures, you'll find descriptions, you'll find a whole host of information. Also, one of the ones I use, especially for this program here, recreation.gov. You can go there anytime. We have a link to it at happycamperradio.com. Go there and browse around, choose a state, choose your home state, and you may find camping destinations close by you. And now the thing about recreation.gov websites, all right, these are publicly operated campgrounds, and not every one of them are going to be open year-round. Here in Georgia, for example, for the most part, we have some pretty good weather throughout the entire year. The winter months come about, let's not call them winter months, let's call them the cold months, around December, January, and February. It's hit or miss beyond that. But for the most part, I consider, just about any time of the year here in Georgia to be good camping weather. But not all the recreation.gov campgrounds are going to be open. Many of them are seasonal. And you'll find that when you go to their website and you just look about any state that you want to choose to go camping in, you'll find some campgrounds that operate year-round, but many of them, most of them, I will say, are going to be seasonal. They'll have a start date and a finish date, and you can make your reservations right there online. That's what's so neat about recreation.gov. If you're going to go camping and you're going to be using a recreation.gov campground, you can always go ahead and make a reservation with an account. It's free of charge. You can sign up right online in a little gray box in the upper right-hand corner. Just sign in, sign up, and they don't ask for a whole lot of personal information and really nothing invasive at all. Makes your reservation process go so much smoother if you're using a recreation.gov campground, and I've been to many of them. Also, reserveusa.com. Check them out as well. They've got some wonderful campgrounds, and just like recreation.gov, you'll find a host of pictures and a lot of useful information. Check out woodalls.com too if you haven't been there. Woodalls, woodalls.com, and find out where some camping sites are throughout the country as well as some in your own state. Another thing I don't want you to overlook too, your state park websites. Do you remember several years back when there was an issue in government? And I really believe this was all political, and I think you and I are all going to agree on this here, that there were some government services that were shut down because the two parties were not agreeing on certain things. Money was being cut, services were being cut, people were being laid off. And one of the first government services to take a hit until they settled their political differences were the recreation.gov campgrounds. Nobody could go camping there. I know, because we were doing the show, and all of a sudden when I went to the recreation.gov site, it was shut down. And they were taking no reservations, no camping was going on, and I had to start looking elsewhere. And one of the first places I started looking at were some of the state park websites. So you're going to find some good camping destinations if you check out your state park locations. There are some campgrounds, again, probably near you that you didn't even know about. Don't overlook places, the unusual places for advertising, like the church bulletin. You may find some advertising in there from different campgrounds that, are looking for people, wanting them to come visit. And also check out some of the privately owned campgrounds, like the KOA campgrounds. I want to say that this is going to be your best bet if you're looking to go camping. If you had to toss a coin and it was going to land on the privately owned campgrounds or the publicly owned campgrounds, I would hope that that coin would land on the private campgrounds each and every time. They're always going to be your best bet. Why? Because they have greater amenities. They have more activities. The hospitality is just unbelievable. And again, folks, these campgrounds are privately owned, which means that the campground owners are going to go out of their way to make sure that you have the very best experience possible. Word of mouth advertising is going to be priority one for them. Their rates are often going to be very compatible to public campgrounds, and you're going to have the time of your life, especially if you are a young family who plans to go camping. You're going to want to choose a private campground because they're going to have a lot of activities right there on site for not only for you as grown adults, but also the young kids as well. Some other things I want you to look forward to whenever you're deciding where you're going to go camping and looking and doing your research. Make sure that you check out the website for the campground. And I don't think there's going to be a campground out there today that does not have some sort of a website or some place where you can go ahead and find the information you need about that campground before you hit the road. If you're traveling, say, for example, in an RV or a motorhome, one of the things you're going to want to know before you arrive, is there adequate space at the site that you plan to camp in to accommodate your rig? If you've got one of these monstrous motorhomes, you want to make sure that you have a spot to back into. And is there going to be a spot? Because, one of the things I've noticed, now I've never owned a motorhome before. When I'm traveling down the interstate, I see these beautiful motorhomes, and most of them are towing a vehicle behind them, and very understandably, because when you arrive at your campground, if you need to go out and about, you need a vehicle to do that. You don't need to be taking your big rig each and every place you go. So you're going to want to make sure that there's adequate space right there at your site. And is there going to be space, too, for your vehicle when you unhook it once you reach the campground? Does the campground provide full or partial hookups? That's important, too. When I first bought my truck camper, I knew nothing about truck campers when I bought it back in 1998. I didn't even know that they made them to fit on half-ton pickups. But it was kind of an impulse buy for me. And when I stepped inside this truck camper that I had, I just fell in love with it immediately, and I had to buy one. And, of course, I had to wait about 30 days. They weren't going to sell me the showroom model. And, of course, the color scheme would not have been ideal for my truck anyway. But when I did buy it, the first thing that came to my mind, I don't need any hookups. I don't need anything because I've got tanks on this truck. I've got tanks on this camper, and I've got plenty of water. I got plenty of this, plenty of that. Wrong. When I got to my campsite, I ended up going into a site where there were no hookups. I did not have electricity. If I wanted to watch television, I had to get out of my camper. I had to go into the cab of the truck, and I had to start the engine because I was going to run my battery down. The lights inside the camper were going to run the battery down. So, yeah, okay, learning lesson number one, check things out before you go. So you want to find out whether or not the campground has full or partial hookups. Maybe you don't need them if you're a primitive camper, and that's okay too. Some other things to look for. Does the campground have a swimming pool or beach access? This is important if you have a young family. For a guy like myself who goes camping, when I go camping with my buddies or I just go camping by myself and decide to wander about the campground and meet folks, I really am not too much concerned with a swimming pool, but I do love camping by the lake. Case in point, one of my very first campgrounds that I went to, West Point Lake, I've talked about it in episode number 1. There was a site down there, site number 88. Anytime I return to the R. Schaefer Herd Campground on West Lake, and West Point Lake that is, I always make sure I choose Site 88. And I make sure that I put my reservation in far in advance because I want to be camping in that site. Is so close to the beach, or not the beach, but anyway, close to the lake. I can walk there just a few steps later, and it's partially shaded. It's, in fact, one of the campground host told me down there when I first arrived, that's one of the most popular sites available. And how did I find out about it? Doing simple research. That's all it takes. It never hurts to do your research ahead of time. Another thing you want to make sure, too, is there going to be an on-site convenience store or a nearby grocery store. This is so important as well. I remember camping in the state of Virginia. I don't even remember where this site was, but it was so wonderful. It was way up on a mountaintop. It was one of Virginia's best-kept secrets. But it was a long distance away from any type of convenience, any type of shopping. And if you had to go out, you better had some gas in your car to get you to where you need to go. The nearest grocery store from that particular campground was about 12 to 15 miles away. You're going to find that most families are not going to be very keen about having to drive a long distance in the event they do have to make a run to the grocery store. A lot of campgrounds do have convenience stores. Many of your privately owned campgrounds, I believe, do. But you also want to find out if there's going to be a grocery store maybe within 2 or 3 miles of the campground, so you don't really have to travel all that far. Another thing to look for, are there any local attractions in the area? Not everyone hangs around at camp. Not everybody is a couch potato like me. And when I get to camp, I love to sit around. I've talked about that. I get into my recliner and I just get very, very relaxed, and that's pretty much where I want to stay. But, if you're a young family, if you've got kids and you want to do some things, you want to find out what the local attractions are in that area, because not everybody hangs out at camp like me. Is there after-hour access to the campground? In many cases, especially your recreation.gov, where you have a campground host, you'll be surprised, maybe not, if you've been camping for a very long time, that you're going to have the gates locked, say, maybe around 10 o'clock. And if you want to get out after 10 o'clock, you're going to have to wake the campground host. And chances are he's going to be camping right by the front gate anyway. And most likely he's not going to be very keen about getting awakened at, say, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to go out. So, and you know this when you're making your reservations too. If you've done any of your research and you've checked the site over very well, you realize that the camp gates may be getting locked at 10 o'clock and may be opening up again at 7 a.m. But that's just the way it is. And I can understand why that is too, because you don't want campers coming in at, say, 3 o'clock in the morning and setting up camp and shining lights into your tent as you're trying to sleep. You don't want people driving in and out and joyriding inside your campground. So, yeah, I understand why the gates get locked. That's something, you have to be prepared for. And in some cases, you're attending maybe a private campground, or There are some public campgrounds that are available that do not have 24-hour access, and some do. So, whatever the case may be, you'll find out when you do your research. Is there a nearby hospital or healthcare facility in the event you need one? Nobody ever counts on emergencies while we're camping and spending time away from home, but it's a good thing to have handy. Some of the questions you need to ask whenever you go visit one of these websites, whenever you're doing your research and you happen to come across a phone number and you have any questions, don't hesitate to call that number. That's why it's there. Now, long-distance camping versus short-distance camping. Again, right from the start, many campers avoid long-distance travel. I'm one of them, and camping close to home is so important to me. I am going to make a long-distance run again. Yes, as soon as I retire, about another year and a half. I'm counting down the days, folks. Yes, it's going to be some time where I'll be spending on the road and doing the Happy Camper radio show while I camp. Now, some frequently, like I say, visit the same campground, but this comes with age, folks. For a guy like me, here I am pushing 60 years old this year. I guess you wouldn't know that hearing my voice, but I'm getting my second wind now, and I'm feeling real good about it. Whatever you do, any campground you go to, I don't care if it's close to home, I don't care if it's far away, it's so very important for you to make your reservations in advance. Don't always count on being able to drive up to the gate or visit the campground office expecting to have a site ready for you, only to find out that they are completely booked. That would be a terrible, terrible thing, especially if you were traveling a long distance. And you better count on this anytime you plan on camping during the holidays. We just had a couple great holidays come and go, and I was really happy to see that the holiday fell in close proximity to a weekend, because that meant a lot of folks were able to get a 3-day weekend, and for the ones who took an extra day to get 4 days, some people left on Thursday and came back on a Monday night. That's great. I wish all weekends were like that. I'd probably be doing more camping than I'm doing right now. But it doesn't matter whether or not it's a holiday or not. If you're going to go camping, always go online and try to make your reservation in advance. In some cases, they may have online reservations available. In some cases, you may have to call the campground office. And that's okay too. But make sure that you get your reservation in. And if you're planning on going camping, say like a holiday, I think the next one coming up here is Labor Day. Right about now is when you should be making your reservations. Right about now is when you should be doing your research to make sure that there are some spots available at a campground of your choosing. They are going to be booked, especially the popular ones. Finally, I want to point out, too, that anytime that you use a website for the purpose of determining whether or not you're going to go camping at a particular campground, I encourage you to read all of the campground reviews. These are going to be entries from people who have camped there before, and you're going to find most of those entries are going to be very positive in nature. Now, don't get turned away if you read 1 or 2 bad reviews. In this world today, folks, you're not going to be able to make everybody happy, and I think we all know that. You may get somebody with a sour attitude, somebody didn't like this, somebody didn't like that, okay, and they go ahead and they put their bad review up there. I take that with a grain of salt. You're going to find most of the people who put these reviews in are going to be very positive. Now, if you ran into about 20, 30, or 40 bad reviews, then you might want to start asking some questions. But here's the thing. Whenever you go to a campground and you have a good experience, if you enjoyed camping, if you enjoyed meeting the people, all of the amenities were just what you wanted them to be, when you get home, when you have a moment to sit down, share your personal experience with others. Make sure you post your comments and be very truthful and honest. Don't be quick to post a horror story about a campground, maybe a bad experience that you had there. Because here's the thing you should do. If you see something that's not right, if you see something that's out of place, you want to get in touch with the campground host immediately, because chances are it's something that they're going to be able to correct and rectify right there on the spot. Maybe it's something that they weren't aware of. Many of these campgrounds, if not all, want to make your camping experience the absolute most pleasant and positive one available. Stay in touch with your campground host. If you see anything that's out of order, definitely point it out. It's time now for our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. Yep. This week, I'm going to take you up to the state of Ohio. Yeah, that's just where they had the Republican National Convention. Have you watched that on television? Wow. I'm not going to get into politics right now, but the state of Ohio is a great place to go camping. It was my neighboring home state, and I did visit the state of Ohio on occasions, including to go camping with my grandparents many, many years ago. But today we're going to visit the Mill Creek Campground. It's a recreational area, and it's an ideal family location for you to consider camping. It's right there on Berlin Lake in northeastern Ohio. Visitors enjoy boating, fishing, picnicking, and camping, among a host of other things. Berlin Lake is situated on the Mahoning River, where it covers 3,590 acres and offers 70 miles of shoreline. Lots of things to do and see while you're there. A variety of wildlife makes its home around the lake. Berlin Lake is a popular location for boating, swimming, fishing. It's renowned excellence in walleye fishing. It's one of a few area lakes where natural reproduction of the species occur. Anglers enjoy fishing for smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, muskie, crappie, bluegill. If you're visiting from out of state, do your research online and find out what your fishing licensing requirements are, because I'm sure there are some out-of-state licenses available as well as your residential licenses. You don't want to get caught doing the wrong thing. So if you're an angler and you plan on going fishing and bringing your line and rod and reel and everything with you, make sure that you get an out-of-state fishing license if you plan on doing fishing. Mill Creek Campground offers 345 sites, ranging from wooded water sites to grassy sites in the sun. Over 100 sites have electrical hookups. Other amenities include a dump station, shower, flush restrooms, a boat ramp, playground, volleyball court, and nature trail. Talk about local attractions. We were talking about this on the show today. The Noah's Lost Ark Animal Sanctuary is just 1 mile south of this campground. If you have young kids, you know they love wildlife, and they're going to want to visit this. The sanctuary is home to a large variety of big and small cats, including lions, tigers, cougars, leopards, bobcats, and lynx. They also have wolves, coyotes, fox, bear, camels, zebras, and primates living in Noah's Lost Ark. Children love the sanctuary petting zoo as well, including educational tours. So consider that if you're going to go camping at Mill Creek Lake. Check out a whole list of their activities and amenities on their website, including a list of things to know before you go. A great place to go camping if you're going to be in the state of Ohio between now and September 10th of this year. Consider Mill Creek Campground. It's our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. And, of course, if you have a campground that you would like for us to feature on the program, definitely get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com, and make sure you include a link to the campground website. Well, folks, that's about all the time I have. I am so glad to be back behind the microphone with you again and loving every minute of this Audio Arts Engineering Air 5 console. I feel like a kid in a toy store almost. Remember, my friends, every pet deserves a loving home. I want you to do exactly like I did. Visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. You can find us online anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at www.happycamperradio.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker. Add us to circles on Google+. And now subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Happy Camper Radio Show is a presentation of Skip Huber Productions. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper. And no question about it, my friends, I'm going to do my very best to make a happy camper out of you. Talk to you again soon. This is Happy Camper Radio.